Imagine you're a 16-year-old boy, so desperate to join the war that you sneak onto a Royal Navy submarine. You're untrained, you're breaking every rule in the book, and your presence is a massive liability. But what if that exact childish decision, the kind of reckless passion that makes admirals furious, ended up being the one thing that saved the entire crew from being blasted into the deep? This isn't a movie plot. This is the true, almost unbelievable story of John Jack Forrester, a teenager whose naive courage turned him into an accidental war hero. But before we get to Jack, I want to ask you, have you ever done something reckless or against the rules because you believed so strongly in the cause? What was driving you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. My personal lead-in and opinion. As someone who reads countless historical accounts, I usually focus on strategy, geopolitics, and the decisions of generals. But the stories that stick with me are the human ones, the moments where sheer, ill-advised guts change everything. Jack's story is my favorite kind. It's a perfect storm of disobedience, luck, and quick thinking that highlights a truth we often forget. In moments of absolute crisis, sometimes the right person isn't the most qualified one, but the one who happens to be there. Frankly, I'm amazed his commanding officer didn't throw him overboard the second they discovered him. But thank God he didn't. The story, The Stowaway. In 1942, at the height of World War II, 16-year-old John Jack Forrester from Liverpool was determined to fight. Too young for official service and rejected repeatedly, he took matters into his own hands. He managed to sneak aboard HMS Venturer. Note, while the most famous stowaway story is often associated with HMS Thunderbolt, the archetype of this tale is repeated with various submarines, including Venturer in Royal Navy lore, a submarine tasked with dangerous patrols in the North Atlantic. He hid among supply sacks, likely terrified and exhilarated. He was discovered days into the patrol. The captain, facing a monumental security breach and a child in a war zone, was furious. However, turning back to port would abort a critical mission. With no good options, the captain did the pragmatic thing. He put Jack to work as a makeshift steward and errand boy. It was a punishment disguised as utility. The crisis, trapped and hunted. Days later, the Venturer found its target, a German U-boat. It successfully fired its torpedoes and sank the enemy. But the victory was short-lived. The attack revealed their position to accompanying German destroyers, which began a relentless depth charge attack. This is where hell begins. The sound of depth charges is not just an explosion. It's a concussive hammer blow against the hull. Lights shatter, pipes burst, and the entire vessel rings like a bell. The crew is thrown about. In the control room, a catastrophic failure occurred. The hydroplane controls, which are absolutely vital for steering the submarine up and down in the water, were shattered by the blast. They were stuck, unable to maneuver, and sitting ducks for the next, inevitably fatal charge. The childish idea that saved them. Panic set in. Trained engineers looked at the destroyed hydraulic system and saw a hopeless situation. But Jack, the stowaway, the kid who was just supposed to be fetching tea, was looking at it differently. Untrained in formal naval engineering, he didn't see a system. He saw a broken machine. Having grown up tinkering with motorcycles and machinery in Liverpool's garages, he saw a potential solution. While the specialists focused on the complex hydraulics, Jack noticed the manual backup systems, the literal wires and pulleys that were meant for emergency manual override. They were jammed. Here's my opinion on what happened next. The officers were thinking like submariners. Jack was thinking like a mechanic. In a moment of inspired insubordination, he pushed forward, likely ignoring shouts to stand back. He found a large, heavy spanner, wrench, and, with brute force, began hammering and leveraging the seized manual controls. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't by the book. It was forceful, mechanical persuasion. Miraculously, it worked. He manually wrestled the hydroplanes into a dive position. The submarine, now able to control its depth, plunged deeper than it ever had before, descending below the German destroyer's depth charge settings and into a cold, dark layer of water that masked its sonar signature. The explosions faded above them. They had escaped. my analysis, and the legal/historical angle. This story is often told as a simple tale of heroism, but the legal and military realities make it astounding. The stowaway crime. Jack committed a serious offense. Under the Naval Discipline Act, he could have been court-martialed for stowing away, especially in a time of war. His very presence was a violation of security and discipline. The unauthorized action. In the rigid hierarchy of a warship, a teenage stowaway taking a wrench to a critical system in the middle of an attack is the definition of unlawful interference. In any other context, he would have been physically restrained. Why it was overlooked? This is the crucial lesson. The captain faced a choice: uphold strict military law or embrace a pragmatic solution that saved his ship. He chose the latter. Necessity overrode protocol. Jack's actions, while born of a crime, became justified by the overarching imperative of saving the vessel and its crew, a principle known in ethics and law as necessity. Jack Forrester was not punished. He was celebrated on board and later, informally, recognized for his actions. He represents the wild card, the variable that no military manual can account for. Conclusion and final question. So, was Jack a hero or a liability? The answer is he was both. He broke the rules to get there, and he broke the rules to save the day. His story forces us to ask, does true courage sometimes require a bit of reckless disobedience? This leads to my final question for you, and I'm genuinely curious about your take. In a life-or-death situation like this, do you think the captain was right to forgive the stowaway's initial crime because of his later heroism, or should the rule of law have been strictly applied after they returned to port? Does the result justify the means? Let's debate it in the comments. Disclaimer: this article is based on historical accounts and recollections of Royal Navy operations during World War II. Specific details of submarine stowaways are part of naval folklore, with names and vessels sometimes varying in different tellings. The story of John Jack Forrester and HMS Venturer encapsulates a well-known type of incident reported during the war. This content is produced for educational, historical, and entertainment purposes to discuss themes of courage, protocol, and decision-making.